You might have read some headlines in the previous week which look something like this.
For the digital age, the Bank of England is exploring the potential for a central bank digital currency to coexist with sterling, earning the nickname BRITcoin.
BRITcoin sounds harmless, maybe even a little bit fun. We've seen an explosion in crypto over the last 10 years, and now everyone seems to be getting involved. If a cryptocurrency with a dog's face on it could be worth nearly 50 billion, then imagine what it could do if it was backed by a government. Well, what if I told you this is already happening, and it's actually happening all over the world? I wonder if BRITcoin will still have the Queen's head on it. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see. But beneath the buzz of a cryptocurrency backed by the UK government hides something a lot more sinister. Your literal liberty could be at stake. If you don't know why, then buckle up and listen up. Crypto is everywhere at the moment, and I'm sure you're very familiar with Bitcoin and all the bull cycle it's been through and its current sky-high valuation. It's even got to the extent where individuals who happened to be in this space 15 years ago could be nearly billionaires today if they'd actually hadn't have thrown out the hard drives that they've been mining on. So you better still be holding those beanie babies. You never know what's going to happen in the future. But the core principles to cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology is a danger to centralised systems. If people can merely exchange information in the forms of money, advice or services without the need of a middleman, then this puts the middleman out of work, and they're not going to be too happy about it. But who are the middlemen in our life? Well, they're any part of society really which requires someone to acknowledge or approve any form of transaction. They're the banks, the governments, and basically any business that you interact with. Basically, it's how society is built today. The reason that these institutions are worried is that blockchain technology creates a system which is based on consensus of a crowd or group. Anyone can be part of this crowd or group, so it prevents anyone from creating a sort of governing body to actually prescribe how everything should work as a centralised system. For the government, this could be a very large problem. How would they collect taxes if they can't trace who owes money from whom and what the cash flows are? How would they track you down if they didn't know where you lived? Their whole system runs on information, and information which runs into them and through them, so they can decide what the best course of action is. Blockchain technology is allowing citizens of the UK to interact with each other without the need for governments or governance. But what if these digital currencies were actually the answer that governments were looking for, rather than the problem? The biggest misconception of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin is that transactions are hidden. This was born out of the fact that early on it was seen as a murky currency, which was only used by criminals to launder money made via underworld trades such as drug dealing. It was famously demonstrated by the hidden website Silk Road, where the owner, Ross Albright, who went by the alias Dread Pirate Roberts, made 600,000 Bitcoin from transactions on there. Today that would be worth £24 billion. But thoughts of Bitcoin being untraceable actually couldn't be further from the truth. Bitcoin is likely to be the most traceable currency ever. Think about it. Every single transaction is recorded on every single node. Think of it this way. If you received a £10 note from a shop in the form of change, who used that £10 note before you? Probably someone who spent it in that shop. But who owned it before them? Their employer, another shop, a drug dealer? You have no idea where that money's been. To give you an idea where it might have been though, in a study in America in 2016, they found that 80% of physical money had traces of cocaine on it. Yep, you heard that right, 80%. I won't even get into telling you the stats around other substances that you really don't want to know about, but feel free to search about it online. So to my point, every Bitcoin or even Satoshi can be traced all the way from the very start from when it was freshly mined. So if you think you're a criminal mastermind by using Bitcoin, then you may as well write on your front door in big red paint, "I am a criminal." But this fact provides a massive opportunity for governments. If they create their own digital currency and push its adoption, then they'll be able to see everything, and I mean everything. Think how much someone could know about you from your cash flow, how much money you're earning, your different income sources, what you're spending it on, at what times, where you're sending it to, all those sorts of things. Fairly quickly, someone could make up a profile of you which actually might be more accurate than you could actually describe yourself. Think about these sorts of details. how much money you're spending on alcohol, how much you're spending on online shopping, how much you're spending on adult entertainment, all these things that you probably don't want the wider world to know, especially your government. But it's not only that. What sort of people are sending money to you? Maybe at the time you're none the wiser, but you're actually being given money by a drug dealer, or a burglar, or a scam artist, and their transactions could be traced back to you one day. Think how powerful this information would be. It sounds something like a Communist Party might do. Well, it's actually no surprise then that China is currently in the line to be the first country to actually launch its own digital currency. China actually started regional pilots of its new digital currency as recently as last year, and there's actually widespread rumours that it could be launched nationally as soon as next year. So if China are doing it, do you really feel comfortable that our government is looking to do this also? But one thing you don't need to feel uncomfortable about is liking this video. It really helps out the channel, so feel free to turn that ugly grey thumbs up button into a smurf. I don't want to interrupt this video any further, but thanks for your support. But outside of China, there have been only a handful of countries who were early to look into this, but none of them were sizable enough to be worth mentioning in this video. The real wake-up call came in 2019, when Facebook decided to launch its very own cryptocurrency, called Libra. But why was this a wake-up call, you might think? Well, the big deal was that Facebook had over 2 billion users, which is actually 7 times the population of the United States. Imagine how much data Facebook could have gained from actually a widespread adoption of its own cryptocurrency. They would arguably start to have more power than any country in the world due to their size and influence. Is it any wonder that the US government actually shut it down incredibly quickly? Since then, 60 further central banks from around the world have entered into the digital currency race, with 88% or the vast majority of them using blockchain as an underlying technology. So this is actually starting to turn into a fairly big deal. So what do we know about this British digital currency then? Well, as of last week, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi, confirmed in a press conference that the government and the Bank of England are exploring the potential of a national digital currency. As part of this, they're creating a new task force to work on the possibility of a central bank digital currency, or a CBDC for short. The idea would be that the currency could one day be used by citizens and businesses around the United Kingdom. This CBDC has been dubbed BRITcoin as a play on words from the well-known Bitcoin, even though they're extremely different. BRITcoin would be a type of digital currency which is known as a stablecoin. If you aren't aware of what stablecoins are, then they are simply cryptocurrencies which are backed by a fiat currency. So for example, Tether, which you might have heard of, is backed by the US dollar, meaning that one Tether is worth $1. This wouldn't, or at least it shouldn't change, as it would be literally like buying $1 for $1. You wouldn't purchase $1 for $1.05, right? Well, in reality, stablecoins really aren't a true cryptocurrency, as they don't really remove the middleman, as that fiat currency is still backed and issued by a government. This means that holding BRITcoin wouldn't come with any value increase or decrease versus its native fiat currency. In this case, BRITcoin would be backed by the British pound. The government has said that this currency would not look to replace cash or bank deposits, but will exist alongside them. I'll respond to this comment later. You need to remember that BRITcoin wouldn't be a cryptocurrency, as it will be centralised and regulated, unlike the promise of blockchain technology where it's decentralised and unregulated. So the name BRITcoin is extremely misleading, as it has nothing to do with Bitcoin really. In terms of timescale of when we could actually see this go live, we actually have a previous example to go off. China initially looked into a digital version of its yen back in 2014, and it's rumoured to believe it's going to launch this cryptocurrency as soon as next year. This means it's about an 8-year project time. As the government has only just started looking into this, we might be looking at the dubbed BRITcoin potentially going live in the year 2029. I've already given my thoughts on how I think this might be dangerous, but to be balanced, let's look at any positives they might have with this. Firstly, welfare payments could be processed much quicker and much cheaper. This would mean they could actually avoid going via banks. The government could simply send the money directly to individuals' digital wallets. This could reduce the cost of welfare, meaning the taxpayers' money can be used more cost efficiently. From another point of view, stimulating the economy might not have to be so indirect anymore. Currently the government either messes with interest rates, so by stimulating the economy by lowering rates, or simply by printing more money and purchasing assets with it. The problem with both of these is that they aren't very well targeted. Both of these have very much unintended consequences. So the printing of money, which is also known as quantitative easing, is actually found up to largely end up in the pockets of the super rich. In terms of interest rates, there is no control on where this stimulus is being directed, as interest rates affect everybody, both individuals and companies. But how could a digital currency make stimulating the economy more direct and more targeted? Well, imagine if the UK wanted to stimulate the economy very quickly. Well, why couldn't they just not issue digital currency which actually had a time expiry on it? So basically, here's £100, either spend it in the next 5 days or you lose it. Equally, maybe there could be a further condition on where you have to spend it. Maybe the government wants to stimulate the food service economy and sends everyone £20 to spend on either food or drink while they're out and about. If you try and spend this money anywhere else, then the transaction simply wouldn't go through. And if you don't spend it in time, then the money would simply disappear. This concept might sound odd, but it's only because our current monetary system doesn't allow for this to happen. Each note in your purse or in your wallet is worth exactly the same as the other ones there. On top of these benefits, imagine the amount of money which goes untaxed from people who only deal in cash. If transactions are in cash, then the government has no idea that these transactions have ever happened, meaning they can't be taxed as an income. Just think how much money must go untaxed just because this money doesn't go through a payslip. This could be an issue of the past, meaning that actually everyone is treated fairly when it comes to tax. I personally pay income tax in full, so why shouldn't somebody else? This also means that it would be next to impossible for criminals to transfer money. Once someone has been prosecuted for a crime, the money could actually be traced very easily back through every single hand that it passed through. And after all, transactions by criminals tend to be with other criminals. But the real question is, are these benefits worth it? Would you be happy to hand over your liberty in full for something like this? Some of you might say this would never happen, but you would be completely wrong. There are such things as forensic accountants who look through bank statements to trace money if they feel that something isn't right. On top of this, the government is starting to strike down on individuals with unexplained wealth orders, where they can investigate anybody if they believe their money has been gained illegally. If these people can't prove that they've legally made this money, then the government reserves the right to remove any assets that they find. A bit like how they do with the proceeds of crime. I'm not saying any of this is a bad thing, but you could easily see how this might be a slippery slope. But what do you think of the idea of BRITcoin? Are you a little paranoid like me? Or maybe actually could you see the benefits it might give and actually trust the government not to overstep the mark? Let me know in the comments below. That's all for this video. See you in the next one.